to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you.
All right. I tell you, I'm struggling with that last verse, but hey, we're here in the morning anyway. Good morning. It's the Power Hour. Glad to be here with you on today. I'm Mark Kelly Tyler sitting alongside Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Good morning.
Royster.
Good morning.
Yeah, if I was from Boston, that's what I'd say. I'd say Royster.
Yeah, I went to college in Boston. They can't say it right. Let me tell you, it was
Is that how
terrible.
is that what they said? Did they say
Yeah,
it like that? Royster?
yeah, it was terrible.
Uh,
Well, they actually didn't say the hard R in the front either, so it was very problematic.
so they
But
called you Oyster?
no, it wasn't oyster. It was just some various like Worcester, roaster. It
Oh,
was,
yeah.
yeah, it was really terrible. And I spent 3 years in Massachusetts listening to people butcher my name every day.
Well, look, they do it to, I mean, they can't get Mark right.
Mark,
Like literally. No, they
Mark,
can't say Mark.
Mark,
No.
Mark.
Mike. Hey, Mike. I'm like, who? What happened? A Mach? What's a Mach? Did somebody just like fly by like at Mach 3 speed? They're like, no, Mike. Welcome to Boston. Glad you brought right stuff. We just lost all our Boston listeners. This show is brought to you by Power Interfaith. Again, it's the Power Hour. We're here with you for 1 hour on today. Glad to be here Monday through Fridays, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Would ask that you would share that out with your friends and family. We always have something good to talk about. Keep your attention for that hour and get you started for the day. Listen, you can tune in this morning, old school. I mean, the original. I mean, going all the way back to Dr. Lomax days, 900 a.m. Could he have even envisioned 96.1 FM, wordradio.com, Facebook Live, YouTube Live? I don't know, but I think he'd be proud right now, smiling down upon WURD. Kawesa is holding the board down for us, and she'll take all of your phone calls. You can call in at 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, or thanks to the Lomax family, you can call toll free if you're outside the area, 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. Hey, download the app, listen all day. There are a lot of great shows on WURD. This is the only, full-time, all-talk, Black-owned media spot in Pennsylvania. The only place in the entire state that you're going to get this kind of conversation all day long. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Kelly Tyler. You can follow Bishop Royster on Twitter at DD Royster. Did I get that right?
You did very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Dwayne David Royster, DD Royster. Listen, so today we're going to have a couple of guests. So if you want to call in, I'd suggest you do it between now and 6:20, because after that, it's going to be hard to get in on today. 6:20, we have the Reverend Keon Garreau and the Reverend Kari Hill. They will be on to talk about efforts to work with younger clergy in getting the vote out. Hashtag protect the vote. And they'll talk to us about Turnout Sunday, which is coming up in October. So there are a lot of efforts already out there underway where people are trying their best to get people out to the polling places. At 6:40, we're going to be joined by Sterling Johnson and an organizer from the encampments, Nadira, to discuss what's going on there. Very interesting conversation. That's, if you looked at the Philadelphia Inquirer this morning, if you had a chance to see it, all of the front page stories of the local section have to do with this. I mean, Janice has a column about it. There's a number of different stories. Mayor Kinney said that they're no longer looking at a one-day approach where they just come in, bulldozers, kind of old school, but it's a multi-day approach. Well, we'll hear how people who are in the encampment are actually feeling about that. And I got a feeling they're going to have a lot to say. You don't want to miss that conversation. Again, that's at 6:40 this morning. But until then, you've got the two of us and a lot to try to cover quickly. Let me just simply say, we remember on today, 19 years ago, the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Can you believe it's been 19 years?
No, time has flown, but in some ways, every time we get to this time, it brings back vivid memories of where you are, where you were that day. what was going on. I remember exactly what happened that morning. I know where I was. I know what I was asked to do that day as a result of what was going on. I remember the panic that set into the country, and it seems like it was just yesterday when we start thinking back around it. As a matter of fact, I was working for the Philadelphia Coalition Against Hunger. I was actually their advocacy director at the time. Our offices were at the Share Food Program up on Hunting Park. I remember there were workers at the Share Food Program that had families that lived in New York that were deeply concerned. We actually wound up having an impromptu prayer service that morning during that time. And it was hard because we continued to have to make sure that folk were able to get the food that they needed out to the various sites across the city. And, you know, it almost reminded me of the early COVID-19 days when we shut down. Because basically America shut down at that point for a couple of days. The stock market went down, New York went down. Everybody spent days glued to their television, wondering what was going on. So yeah, it's hard to believe it's been almost 19 years ago, but yeah, it's just a flashback when you just think back to it, and it almost takes you right back there again. It's one of those traumatizing moments in human history.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's amazing. So all four of my kids are too young to really fully understand or remember that day. Even my oldest, who's in her mid-20s, was, still too young. Even if she remembers it, doesn't probably quite really remember it. So it just kind of just reminds you as well that there is a growing generation that's already disconnected from the actual event in that particular day. I guess this is kind of what happened after Pearl Harbor. Speaking of which, I've been thinking a lot about yesterday's conversation and really the ways in which people are in pain around the country about the revelation of Donald Trump's knowing full well about the deadliness of this disease as far back as February 7th, as disclosed in the Bob Woodward tapes, that he doesn't deny it, but he's now totally deflecting, right? And it's his talking point about it now, and he's doubling down. So he was in Michigan yesterday in a packed, airplane hangar. People are crazy, first of all. I mean, even gathering that way with a whole bunch of boo, boo. Every time you boo, you're throwing out projectiles and particles, and your neighbor is throwing them at you. But his new attack line, I guess, our defense of what he knew and did not, act upon, is that he was trying to not create panic in the American people. No one ever said you had to go around flailing your arms and screaming bloody murder, but, come to the podium and have confidence and walk us through what we need to do. So yesterday, in defense of that, or last night in Michigan, he invokes FDR, who famously said, during World War II, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. He then went on to quote, I believe it was Churchill, but he said it was one of the slogans from England during the Battle of Britain when the Nazi Germany was just like bombing that London to submission. London, just keep calm and keep it moving. And I'm thinking, well, you're kind of missing a big point here. Because if FDR had known Pearl Harbor, since we're remembering 9/11 today, if FDR had known not known that the Japanese were about to attack Pearl Harbor and purposely did nothing because he didn't want to create a panic for the sailors who were about to be killed, I mean, that would be an unforgivable sin. If George W. Bush, and I know there are conspiracy theorists out there, trust me, so please stop. Don't call the station. Don't post on social media who are already going to tell me FDR did know. And Bush did know. Okay, please. We don't have enough time in this segment to unpack that. So hold that for another day. But if George W. Bush knew that these planes were about to hit the World Trade Center and did nothing because he didn't want to panic the people in buildings that were about to be murdered, I mean, that would be an unforgivable sin. And this guy, even now, does not have the decency to at least just apologize and say, you know what, my God, I thought I was doing right. In hindsight, with 193,000 people dead and 1,000 dying per day, I see that was the wrong decision. Leadership is about growing from your mistakes. Would not people accept that?
Yes, they would. But if you're a narcissist and you think that everybody's waiting on waiting on baby. I'm always gonna go to the narcissist argument with him because I think he has a warped sense of his own reality, and as a result of that, he always thinks that everybody is waiting on him, and he's got to stand up there and be the big hero, right? Do you remember in the early days of this, when he finally admitted that it was starting to get tough, that he said he was a wartime president because he needed a war so he could get reelected. So he started referring to himself as a wartime president, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, it was a war, but it would be a war if you could actually admit it in the beginning what was going on and then actually prepared the people for what was coming. But he chose not to do that because he had to be the great savior. He had to be the big white savior, and that's the problem with us all. Absolutely the problem with every single aspect of this. So,
Wow. That's wow. I mean, that's absolutely right. He did want a war, didn't he?
yeah, he did. Well, he kept saying he came out. I remember he came out to the press conference and said, This is a war. We are in a war." And then he did some of the interviews and he said, "Well, I'm a wartime president, and this is what we're doing." But yet, even still, in the midst of being a war, now what he did, like Bush, was claim victory too early. And then
Well, right.
he started distracting folk and making them think something other than what it was. And then now all of a sudden he's denying that it was ever really that bad. So he's actually chaotic. In during World War II, the German Air Force Luftwaffe used to do this thing called blitzering, where they would just create chaos in the air, and that was one of their tactics towards winning battles. And I said, in many ways, what Trump does on a daily basis is blitzerings, right? He just goes after everything, just creates chaos and confusion. And so you don't know what's truth, you don't know what's right or wrong, and the only person that you then have to turn to is him to figure out, really what's going on. And that always leaves him in a level of control. So this is just a tragic situation that we find ourselves in over and over again with the American people and Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, listen, we got Maurice from Southwest. Let me just throw this out real quick. He's on the line, but real quick. In Kansas City last night, the NFL resumed the new season. Praying for those guys. I don't know how they make it through a season without COVID just ravaging the league, but because they're not in a perfect bubble like the NBA. But so again, hoping that they stay not only injury free but COVID free. They had a moment of silence and unity where the two teams linked arms to lift up the cause of racial injustice. The NBA is now behind it, though they fought cap on it, and the Kansas City fans. Who would ever expect this from a group that, uses the tomahawk and makes sounds like, quote unquote, wild Indians during games? Who would ever expect this of them? They booed the entire time during the moment of unity, the 15,000 fans that were there. Very classy Kansas City, as Ron Burgundy would say, keep it classy. Hey, but we maybe could talk about that on Monday because there'll probably be more of that coming, Monday from the rest of the game Sunday. Maurice. What's up? You got about a minute.
All right, the Bopsy twins. That's what I'm calling you two because you're great guys. But look, let me tell you something. No way would I accept it. I don't care if he got on his knees and begged for forgiveness. It's almost 200,000 dead. I'm not going to forgive him for saying he made a mistake. That was not a mistake. That thing was thought out clearly on he didn't want to tell anybody because of his economy. Let's be honest. We can't always keep being apologetic and always finding a way to forgive somebody. This man need to be run out on a rail and twice run over by a truck. There's no way that we need to give this guy no forgiveness. I'm not trying to hear that stuff no more.
I got your take. So let me just clarify what I said. So thank you for the call. So what I'm saying is this: I don't agree with run over by the truck. I do believe run out of town. But what I'm saying is that when as a leader you make a miscalculation, right? And so that was clearly wrong what he did. And then to come out and then lie about it, right? But leadership is also about how you handle your mistakes. And so what I'm saying is I would still not agree with what he did, but that you can understand somebody in the heat of a moment going and making a horrible mistake and then at least coming out and owning it and saying, look, I know people will probably never forgive me. Those 200,000 families that have lost loved ones, they'll never forgive me, but this is why I did it, and listen, it's on me. That's what I'm getting at. And he cannot even have the decency to just simply say what we say in, common terms around, around where we live now is my bad. But instead it's Obama's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's, the Chinese shouldn't have never let it out. He can't even admit this. And that's my point. So I look, you get no disagreement with me. I'm not saying that we should vote for him if he then came out and admitted that, but just own your stuff, bruh. Own your stuff. Look, we're out of time. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Reverend Keon Guerreau and the Reverend Kari Hill about getting out to vote, to your point, Maurice. We'll be right back.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
Livelihood. The new initiative from Word Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Good morning. Pretty good ride here in Philadelphia so far this morning. Just some late volume building southbound 95 from Cottman down through the bridge, through that ongoing construction, down to 3 lanes in that work zone. Further south, no other problems. Northbound 95 looking good. Schuylkill Expressway, pretty good shape both east and westbound. Vine Expressway, no major issues there yet, heading through Center City, Philadelphia. PA Turnpike and the Blue Route 476 moving fine in New Jersey. 42, 55, 295. Trouble-free there as well so far this morning. For more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour with Mark Kelly Tyler and Dwayne David Royster. I gave our full names, man. Just put it all out there this morning. We are excited that you are here with us as we start early morning programming here on Word. And thanks to Kwesa for always getting us set up and ready to roll every single morning. We now have a couple of guests that are coming on at this moment. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Reverend Tyler to take us through the program.
Thank you. Thank you. So listen, we've got some folk. We're going to talk about some efforts to get younger clergy out to the polling places. It's been one of the, I think, concerns of a lot of people that young people are not necessarily engaged in this election cycle, but they're here to dispel that myth and talk about what's going on. We have with us the Reverend Keon Guerreau of the Catalyst Church here in Philadelphia and Reverend Kari Hill. Glad to have both of them on. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning. Good morning. Top of the morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, so listen, first of all, we're glad that you all are here with us. And this is very early in the morning, so we appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, really, but it shows your commitment to this particular cause. And so the two of you right now are leading an effort along with Dr. Barbara Skinner out of Washington, D.C., who a lot of folk know. She's all over the issue of voting, not just this cycle, but every time there is a national election. And it's an effort called From Protest to the Polls. Reverend Guerreau, talk about your involvement in this, and how'd you get roped into this?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you so much for this opportunity. Reverend Royster, Reverend Tyler, you all must really love Jesus to get up this early every single day to do this show. So I am absolutely grateful. Here's the facts. The facts are this. 4 years ago, Trump won Pennsylvania, and he won Pennsylvania because we had over some 200,000 African Americans who were eligible who did not register to vote. In addition to that, he only won by 44,000 votes. 52% of those who voted in Pennsylvania who were over the age of 50 voted for Donald Trump. Here's what we're suggesting. When we look at the landscape of what's happening not only in this country but specifically in Pennsylvania, when we look at voter suppression efforts that's taking place here in Pennsylvania and throughout the landscape of our country, when we look at how it is that our president has now even gone so low to have our postmaster to remove mailboxes from communities of color, when we look at how it is that even now we're starting to realize that our president has lied about how catastrophic the COVID-19 situation was, and nearly 200,000 people in America have died because of this, that died unnecessarily. And specifically, when we look at some of the tactics and policies here in Philadelphia and throughout our state, it is a clear sign that we need young folk going to the polls. Here's what I've been hearing. Voting does not matter. Well, if it does not matter, then why did so many people die, fight, protest for it? When we look at the implications of this election, we're not just talking about a sitting president. We're also talking about Supreme Court nominees. We're also talking about judges right here in Pennsylvania, right here in Philadelphia. When young black boys and young black girls go before the court, who are going to be on their side, in their corner? We have to make sure to it that we're going to the polls, that we understand the issues, that we're educated, that we're organized, and that we're mobilized.
Yeah, so Reverend Kari Hill, who's an associate at Jones Memorial Baptist Church, I hope I got that right, here in the city of Philly. And so, listen, glad to see the both of you who are helping to lead this effort. What's been your experience in talking, especially to younger African-American voters in Pennsylvania and those 200,000, right? I mean, are we making any movement toward the 200,000 that were unregistered the last time? Are people beginning to register? Are people excited about voting? I mean, what's your sense right now?
Well, good morning again to you, good brothers. Thank you so much for having us. Trying to mobilize young people at this particular juncture has been a feat because many of them don't understand the benefits of it all. Unfortunately, as Dr. Giroux has already said, so many people fought and walked for us to get that right, including a group that I'm so passionate about, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, some of the frontline individuals to make sure that voting was possible for females in this country. And so many of our young people don't understand the power of the vote. And so we have seen a myriad of looks across the state. There are some places where people are rushing to the polls and rushing to vote. However, we're trying to get young people, young pastors, young clergy, young individuals to understand that let's not just wait till November. We have the opportunity here in Pennsylvania to get absentee ballots. We have the opportunity to send those absentee ballots in. We have the opportunity to help our grandparents who may not be able to get to the polls this year because of whatever situation. So we wanted to be on the front lines with Dr. Skinner to push this word out, to move our church communities, our neighborhoods, our college students generation, to let them know that we need you. If we're going to have change over the next 4 years that will impact our lives, we need everybody to get to the polls in November. And if that means you have to do it in advance through absentee ballot, then we need to get it done.
So let me ask you, what's the plan? How are you working on reaching out to this clergy, and how are you engaging them in registering to vote and getting their congregations to register to vote?
That's an excellent question. One of our first efforts is coming up on this coming Monday, September the 14th. We're hosting a 1-hour panel discussion with Dr. Skinner and also one of our good brothers, Dr. Jamal Bryant. And we're encouraging all young pastors, young clergy, to join us on this particular call, from protest to the polls. And what we're going to talk about is how we need to set up our congregations to be catalysts in our neighborhoods, to keep that voting conversation very prevalent. We're encouraging pastors and during this conversation to get folks to the polls. Can you set up transportation opportunities? And so this conversation, this early conversation on Monday, is going to get them to do that. We are going to be spreading the word and pushing out information in the days and weeks to come about how individuals can register for absentee ballots. We're going to talk about how we can partner up and pair up with individuals in our neighborhoods. But we need pastors to be our voices to help us set up local precincts. And meaning, strategically where your church is located, can you be an epicenter? Can you be a catalyst right there in that neighborhood to help get that message out? So we know that the Black church is the center of our communities, and we need to take up on this opportunity as the center of our communities to spread this important message, but not just spread the message, but help get people there and help provide them with the resources that they need to get folks there.
So I'm looking on the information that you sent to us. So it's visit turnoutsunday.com, and that will then take persons to register for the event with Reverend Jamal Bryant and you all on Monday night. Is that right?
That is true. Yes, sir.
All right. So turnoutsunday.com. So Keon, before we let you all go, real quick, what do you say to younger folk? And I hear this all the time. You just laid out that our ancestors died for us to get the right to vote, which is absolutely right. And for a certain number of us, that's all we need to know,
Yeah.
And we're going to go vote because they could not. I have heard from so many people who are under 30 that, that don't mean nothing to me. Don't try to guilt me into voting. Don't try to shame me. I happen to think shame is a good thing. I mean, it's, my folk had to shame me into acting right when I was wrong. And I don't see what the problem is, but how are you addressing that? How do you message around that?
Yeah, so, the reality is this. When you look at college, university, when you look at financial aid, when you're looking at loans, when you're looking at first-time home buyers, these are all issues that are very germane to young people on a daily basis. When you look at welfare and how it is that we get access to loans, when you look at for businesses and entrepreneurship, when you're looking at issues surrounding all kind of medical assistance. These are all issues that are very, very germane to young people right now, lived experience. Yes, we can talk about our ancestors who died. Yes, we can talk about those individuals who marched, but we have to also understand that we are right now not just dealing with COVID-19, we're also dealing with COVID-19 in the 21st century. Right now, we have so many names that we are exhausted from naming the names of individuals who have died because of police brutality. Right now, we are in perilous times. These are times that we have not seen like no other. And if not us, then who? If not now, then when? The time is now for young people, much like we've always done throughout the history of our time. When you look at South Africa and apartheid, when you look here in the civil rights movement in the 60s, when you look all across the country, all across the world, there have always been young people at the front and center of movements of change. This is like that kind of time as well. The question is this: when our grandchildren begin to ask us, what did we do in 2020 when time and history had met and collided? What was our response as young black people? I want to be on the right side of history, and I hope that my young counterparts are as well.
All right. Hey, thank you. That's the Reverend Keon Garreau and the Reverend Kari Hill. Want to thank them. And Reverend Hill posted in the chat on Facebook Live, if you're watching the stream right now, the information to the conversation on Monday night. Again, you can register. And listen, if you got a pastor, clergy leader, wherever you worship, reach out to them and tell them they should tune into this, register for them, and then let them know that you did and send them the link. It's turnoutsunday.com. Check it out, register, and be there on Monday night. They'll be joined by the Reverend Jamal Bryant. So in fact, we ought to try to get Jamal on Monday. I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can get him on Monday morning to talk about his role in this, what he's doing around the country as well. He's at New Birth in Atlanta now. All right, thanks to the two of you. You can go back to bed now.
No,
Thank
sir,
you.
I'm on my way to school. I'm a school
Thanks, you all.
administrator. I'm on my way to school.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Hill. Thank you, Reverend Garreau. Have a great day.
You as well,
Yeah.
sir.
Hey, so Royster,
Yes, sir.
so seriously, this is an interesting time. Now, I want to say that so a part of me, like, it pains me to hear young folks say that, and to hear women who don't fully appreciate the suffrage movement, right? And for black women, especially, had to deal with, being a woman and being black, and had to fight those two things. Now, not having appreciation for the history and folk who opened those doors. But is there also some blame to be spread around, especially the Democratic Party, that has benefited mostly by the black vote, in not, allowing those benefits to seep down onto the street level? I mean, is this a payback?
Yeah, I mean, here's the challenge that we have, right? So the most consistent Democratic voter in this country, 98% of the time, is an African-American woman. They're more consistent than black men, more consistent than white men, white women. They vote Democrat. And I think for many years, their consistency has not been appreciated nor warranted. And as a result of that, people were not giving them what they needed to be successful, right? The policies that were happening, the things that were being presented, the way that the leaders, from city leaders all the way to state leaders to the federal leaders, just for not taking the concerns of black women and black mothers in particular to heart. And so now you've got a generation of folk that are saying, we keep voting for you, and our condition, our material condition, if I could quote Pastor Mike McBride, right? Our material condition hasn't changed. So why are we voting for you and our situation is not getting any better? So, I mean, I think that is part of the problem, right? There has not been a progressive sense. And in many days, it often feels like real Democrats and then real Republicans, not these Trumpers, but real Republicans, it doesn't often feel like there's much difference between the two when you consider what they do when they have power in Washington, D.C. or the state capitol, even though we haven't had real Republican power in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, in over 50 years, almost 60 years. So, but yeah, there is, I mean, the Democratic Party has to own the fact that it has not created policies that have centered black folk and black women in particular. It has not appreciated but always taken advantage of the vote, rolls out great diversity bandwagons when it does its national conventions and various conventions. But when you really get down on the local level, and for, full disclosure, I'm a former politician in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I was a councilman at large in Norristown. I saw the inside of this thing. And while they wanted our vote, they didn't want our voice. And so that's a real challenge. Now, the Republicans don't want it either. So at least the Democrats make some effort to try to do that. But, I mean, I think we have to build independent black political power that, can force the Democrats and Republicans and all the other parties to really take seriously our vote and to really respect what we want. So we do have this situation where young folk are saying, why should I bother to vote because of this? Now, the lesson in this moment, though, it's very clear that they've had the chance to see how their lives have gone backwards the last 3 years.
Right.
And so now they can begin to understand in a deeper way, why this. So I don't even, I don't do the historical thing with young folk anymore. I don't tell them, vote because, your ancestors were marching, got bit by dogs, some were killed for this. Because, for some of them, and, the way we teach things in schools nowadays, we don't really lift up the significance of this stuff. But the thing I really ask them about and talk to them about is every time a cop's got a knee on somebody's neck, right? Every time we are witnessing, policies that are incarcerating folk, or we're losing economic benefits, or we can't raise the minimum wage that's impacting their daily lives, so they have to work 2 or 3 jobs. We have to meet them where they are in this moment and then show them how in the last 3 years, just at the federal election, how backwards things have come and how much more difficult their lives have become. And if we had just had 44,000 more people vote in Pennsylvania, that our lives could be very different right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, I think about it. So you and I are close in age, and I'm the first person in my family, immediate family, born with the guaranteed right to vote. My older siblings were born, like before the Voting Rights Act happened. And so for us, it's a lot closer. I mean, we are like, we're the first to truly benefit from it. It was never a question in my life, would I be able to vote? It was more of a question of how I would use and cast that vote. And so maybe there's also that distance. So now for others who don't have parents who can talk about the times where we did not have that right, you could take things for granted. And so I agree that maybe this moment has helped them understand the consequences of not voting. And I know the Democratic Party ain't all of that, but trust me, the other option is far worse, as we have seen. You have people like Mitch McConnell who sit back and literally watch and enable this president to do what he has done, and it has led now to the countless deaths of people because he did not act. So voting does, yeah, right. So voting has consequences, and so if you don't want to do it for the ancestors, my God, do it for yourself and do it for your future children as well. We got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the encampments in Philadelphia and the city's attempt to resolve it. We're going to hear from organizers who are on the ground, who have been there the entire time as well. And looking forward to that conversation on the other side of the break.
We will never know how many of our friends and family members didn't get COVID-19 because we followed safeguards. We'll never know that number. This is Dan Hilferty, CEO of Independence Blue Cross, with a simple reminder of how much good we do for others when we protect ourselves. We'll never know how many lives we save because we wear masks, wash our hands frequently, and keep social distance. We'll never know exactly who we help, who we save when we take protective steps each day. We'll only know one thing for certain, that we did all we could to save people from the effects of a pandemic with the potential to overwhelm the region. And that's a nice thing for us to live with. Thank you all. For more on what you can do, visit ibx.com. Together, we are beating COVID-19.
Tune in this Sunday at 2 p.m. for the Gastrology Conversation Show, providing information and understanding about your colon health with Dr. Stephen Blake.
COVID-19, rising infections, red alert levels, and worries about reopening. What can you do? The Germ Killer's two-step products and services disinfect and protect for up to 90 days to give you peace of mind. The Germ Killer's system kills viruses and bacteria on high-touch surfaces in schools, houses of worship, businesses, and public transportation. Decontaminate immediately and keep students, school staff, congregations, or customers safe for months. Go to thegermkillers.com and get the coverage and safety you deserve.
Hi, this is Councilmember Mark Squilla. We need every Philadelphian to be counted in the 2020 census to get the funding we need to recover from the challenges of COVID-19. The census brings funding to Philly for education, healthcare, food support, public safety, and more. For every person who isn't counted, Philly loses $21,000 in funds over the next decade. We can't let that happen. You have until September 30th to get counted. Go to 2020census.gov or call 1-844-330-2020. Don't delay, Philly. Get counted now. Thank you.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by Staples Stores, southbound 95. Splay Valley beginning to build through the construction, Cotman through Bridge. Again, Allegheny down through Girard, northbound 95. No major issues yet through the city. Westbound Vine Expressway, Light Bend Franklin Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill itself both ways, still in pretty good shape between 202 and South Street. No major problems on the Boulevard Route 1 southbound into 76, PA Turnpike. And the Blue Route 476 in pretty good shape. In New Jersey, 42, 55, 295, and no major problems there as of yet. Staples helps your business from office essentials to health essentials at amazing prices. This week, get 40% back in rewards when you spend $75 on Anchor, $175 on toner, and 40% back in rewards on all paper. Offer ends 9/12. Exclusions apply. Details at staples.com/40 and rewards Staples. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Hey, welcome back to the Power Hour, along with Bishop Dwayne Royster and Mark Kelly Tyler here on the other end. And listen, great conversation with Reverend Jerome and Reverend Hill about what they're doing. First of all, let me just also shout out all of you who are on Facebook Live. Thank you for the lively conversation. As always, glad to see you, Kenrick, Karen, and Tawanda. Glad to see Sheriff Bilal, who says this is way too early. Can't do anything about that. The time is what the time is, Sheriff. You know how it is. Glad to see all of you who are contributing to this conversation. Ruben as well. Hey, glad to see Leslie up early this morning. Bishop Peggy. Glad to see all of you. We're waiting on our guests this morning. And while we're waiting on them, I want to ask those who are listening on Facebook Live to share this out with your friends so they can get the last few minutes of this conversation. And so Royster, we got a lot going on within Power. Both of us you're the interim executive director. I'm one of the co-directors for Power Live Free. I work on gun violence and police accountability and mass incarceration. So Power is not sitting idly by in this hour, but we're also doing some things to get out the vote. So explain to folk what's happening with Power.
Yeah, so pretty much like what Reverend Garreau and Reverend Hill were talking about, Principal Hill, we should say too. She's a principal in the one of the schools here in Philadelphia, elementary school. Side note, real quick, I just was sitting there thinking about it that we had four ninths of the Divine Nine on the phone at the time, so it's just because I'm an Iota, you're Alpha, Reverend Hill is a Delta, and I believe Pastor Garreau is a Kappa. So, just a thought there for a moment. But anyway, going back to what Power is doing. So Power, we are actually working across the state of Pennsylvania to reach out to about 200,000 Pennsylvanians about getting out the vote. And we're working with congregations to ask members of the congregation to reach out to family and friends, and so we can track it and make sure folk are getting on to get out to vote. We're trying to rent vans to get people to the polls and take them to the county commission office so they can drop off their early ballots, because there's a lot of legal things that are happening right now that are challenging our ability to turn our ballots in across the state. And we want to make sure that everybody that needs to get to the ballot, if they can't go on election day, are able to turn their vote in and make sure that their voice is counted in this season. So we're working in about 14 counties across Pennsylvania with congregations. We actually have a goal of 100 congregations, getting 40 of their congregants to reach out to 30 of their family and friends. And if we do that, we'll get 120,000 people just from that. And we are continuing to reach out more and more in different segments of the community across the state to invite them to participate in building beloved community by using their sacred right to vote. Dr. Steve Ray, who's the president of Chicago Theological Seminary, once said when I had him in Chicago with me at a gathering of clergy leaders around voting, and he said that voting is one of the tools that we use to build beloved community. Because through voting for the right folk that we can find, we are actually able to build systems and structures that can create the beloved community. He said to not vote is therefore sin for those of you who are believers, because then you are not doing everything possibly within your power to build the kingdom of God. And,
so let me just say this, all right, so I'm glad you said that, because I want to underscore that point. You're right. Voting is one tool, right? It is like literally one tool. It's not all of the tools, and voting is one step, but it is a critical step. Right. Because the other part is holding people accountable. So I'll give you an example. What we tend to think of is, so we vote the person in that we want, and we cross the finish line. Now, let's remember. Right. So let's be clear. So black folk have been phased into voting throughout the nation's history, and so we are maturing in our understanding of how we operate in a democratic process. That's to be kind of, I think, taken for granted. And so as we understand it better now, we witnessed with Barack Obama that there were certain things that Barack could have done for us if we would have pressed him. But there are obvious reasons why people were afraid to do that. He's the first. You want to make sure he gets the second time in. And by then, stuff is already done. He's lame duck. A lot of his own, power is like diminished at that point. But, what we've done with Power Live Free, for example, these town halls all summer long, every other Wednesday night, we're having town halls, inviting city council to come in to the Zoom room while we put it on Facebook Live to talk about this police oversight law. In the middle of the summer, when folk are out at the beach and doing other things, it's not easy organizing. It's not easy or sexy keeping people in town halls talking about, hey, we got this researcher from Boston who's going to come in and talk about the history of the FOP. But that is necessary. That's how democracy works, right?
That's popular education, right? That's part of the way this whole thing has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you cannot simply just to think that, all right, well, we elected the people we want, now let's go away. Do you all understand the forces that are operating behind the scenes on these elected officials? Now, Royster, you and I saw this firsthand when we first started operating with Power, where we had politicians, I won't call any elected names out, who had made commitments to us. And we sat and watched in horror in the chamber while lobbyists walked freely on through and were like, hey, you ain't voting for that. No, you're not. Well, I told them I was. Nah, you're not. Okay, I'm not. I mean, the kind of power that these folk with money exercise over elected officials can only often be countered by the power that we bring with the vote and keeping pressure on them and reminding them that if you don't do what we voted you in to do, we will vote you out and put somebody else in. That's how democracy works. So voting, yes, I get it. It ain't the end all be all. Putting Biden and Harris in is not going to solve all the world's problems, but it is a start. And then if you do the other part, then democracy begins to work for you.
Well, it's actually kind of funny, though, you say that, right? Because there's never been a politician that I've 100% agreed with, except when it was me.
Thank you.
so then if there's no politician that's perfect, and then the challenge is that then you have to use your power, your ability to get other people to partner with you to go get that politician to understand your position and to be able to make that happen. And I think we are kind of, this is business. Let me just remember going back to the airport campaign when we were first starting Power. And we were really working hard around trying to get the lease arrangements for American Airlines at the airport changed. Mm-hmm. So literally we had leaders, clergy and lay leaders that were actually out City Hall, at City, going in and out of the offices, meeting with the council members, trying to get this law changed, this lease changed, until they bailed on us at the very last second. And y'all who are listening out there know who you are. And the real challenge here was the lobbyists for the airlines were basically coming in and out of the offices as we were going in and out of the offices, right? Trying to make their point. And what a lot of people don't realize is that there are forces that are constantly in their ears and telling them what they should do and throwing money at them, not illegal money, it's the way they do it legally through their PACs. And if we as a community don't rise up and speak our voice and speak our truth, we will always get left behind. And that's part of the reason why organizations like Power and others exist, so that the voice of the people can be heard in the public arena, in the public square, and that we hold politicians accountable to not cutting deals behind closed doors with lobbyists, but they're actually cutting deals with the citizens who put them in office in the first place. Let me be clear, those airlines didn't put them in office. It was the people of Philadelphia that put them in office. And we need to be very clear that we also, the people of Philadelphia, are the one they need to respond to, not corporate lobbyists, not people who don't really have a vested interest in the city of Philadelphia, but the people of Philadelphia who live here, who work here, who've made life here, who've built generations of families here. Those are the folk that they need to be paying attention to. So when we go vote, voting is just a piece of this process, not the whole process. And so we just need to be clear with folk about that. They need to get to work with us in fighting to make sure that we build the city that works for everybody.
Hey, listen. Well, I'm amen to all of that, and to help you get inspired, I'm looking at Facebook Live. Bernita put in there that people ought to check out the Reverend Freddie Haynes' sermon last night on behalf of Otis Moss III. She says it is powerful. I mean, Reverend Haynes always preaches a powerful word. Glad to see Mary mixing it up in there. And Will Mega says the Noops are in the house. Is that a thing? Now he's gonna like come run me down in the street somewhere, like somebody like just come and just run me off the road on my motorcycle. I'm like, it was Will Mega. No, I'm just messing with you. Hey, but Will is right, and you were right earlier. The Divine Nine, the black fraternities and sororities are energized in a way because this is historic. I mean, what Barack Obama had as the first black, elected official, two things he didn't have. He didn't go to HBCU, and he was not a part of the Divine Nine. And those two entities are hyped about Kamala Harris.
Oh, man. Kwesa is on. We have a back channel text going on, and she's a member of Sigma Gamma Rho.
SG Rho. Well, we got everybody today. Where's the Qs? Wait, we missing the Qs, the Zetas, and the Sigmas.
The Qs, Zetas, and Sigmas, yes. And with that, we would have all the Divine Nine together.
Check in. Where are you?
So that's right. All the IOTAs out there in the land. Check us out. Well, look,
6. I'm sorry, man.
Look, we got to go. Look, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us for the second week of the Power Hour here on WURD. We will be back with you on Monday through Fridays from 6 to 7 a.m. Please check us out. Join us. Share on Facebook Live. Share on YouTube. Let people know that we're here. We're trying to get you started in the morning. We're trying to inspire, inform, and get your day started right.
Hey, Royster.
Yes, sir.
They can also check you out. I will not be on because I'll be hanging out. It's Friday night. Me and Leslie will do something. But Friday night, you can also check Royster out on Solutions back on WURD 5 to 7. Is that right?
That's right. Although I'm not going to be on tonight. Marty's got it tonight.
Don't ever do that. Like, I don't tell people I'm not preaching. My members text me, Rev, are you preaching? I say, if it's the Lord's will, because I know they're not going to come to church. Don't tell them you're not on.
No, people love a Marty. People love a Marty as well. So, all right. Well, listen, we'll be back with you on next week. Thanks for joining us on the Power Hour. Peace.
06.
Oh.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter.
Did you get an eviction notice before the shutdown? Are you looking for a lawyer once the moratorium ends? There's so many questions with so little time. Let Equally Informed Philly find the answers for you. Just text the phrase Equal Info to the number 73224. Again, that's Equal Info, one word, to 73224. Their community information line will get the answers you need to survive in the time of COVID-19. Equally Informed Philly for all Philadelphians.
What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B, that is. And our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
How do we make sense of our nation's history with race, privilege, and inequality? On Thursday, September 24th at 6 p.m., join Pulitzer Prize-winning author and Harvard University historian Annette Gordon-Reed as she discusses the challenges of wrestling with America's complicated past. This free virtual event is part of the Museum of the American Revolution's Carl M. Buchholz lecture series. Tickets are free, but registration is required at amrevmuseum.org or by calling 215-253-6731.
This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on Word Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.